Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Schultz, and I serve as the chair of the Board of Ethics and Campaign Practices. I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order for this afternoon. We have a variety of items on our agenda. The agenda was published, so the first thing I'm going to ask from one of our board members is a motion to approve the agenda for the December 6, 2019 meeting.
I move that we approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Anyone opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. We have 4 sets of minutes to approve from meetings going, I'm not quite sure why, but all the way back to February 2018. I would actually like to propose a few changes to 3 of the sets of minutes. I am the chair of the board, and although I greatly appreciate the vote of confidence, in 3 sets of the minutes, I am listed as President Schultz. So I would like to have those, I would like to suggest that we revise the October 29, November 1, and December 3 minutes to reflect that I am the chair, not the president, and that would be throughout all the references in those. In addition, in the November 1, 2019 minutes, under review and approval of the agenda, the minutes as drafted indicate that I moved to amend the agenda, and then immediately following that, it shows that another member moved to amend the agenda with another member seconding. So I would move to strike the first sentence of paragraph 2, because as chair, I can't move anything. So I am suggesting those revisions to the board, and otherwise would entertain a motion to amend the approval of the minutes from the February 8, 2018, October 29, 2019, November 1, 2019, and December 3, 2019 minutes as amended.
With the revisions noted by Chairman Schultz, I move that we approve the minutes of the 4 meetings reflected on the agenda.
And I second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
A little disappointed nobody wanted to speak up to my title as president, but we'll go on from there. We are here today primarily for item 7 on our agenda, which is the mandatory pre-runoff election meeting. We are required to have this meeting the Friday immediately before any city election. So at this point, I'm going to turn over the meeting to John Grisham, who is the campaign auditor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. My name is John Grisham. I am the independent campaign and election auditor retained by the Board of Ethics. My duty as campaign auditor is to help ensure compliance with the election code by monitoring all disclosure statements for accuracy and compliance, and to assist all candidates and major finance committees in connection with the election code. Before we start today, I would like to remind all candidates the requirements to continue filing statements related to the runoff through the end of the election cycle. This is true for all candidates, whether or not they are elected on Tuesday. There's a statement due on December 9th and a statement due on January 9th. I'm going to start with District 2, the candidates from there. Zachary Quintero.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Zachary Quintero, candidate for City Council District 2, Mr. Chairman and/or President.
Thank you. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes, sir, we have.
As a participating candidate, in-kind contributions to your campaign are limited to 10% of the applicable spending limit for the runoff election. Have all in-kind contributions been reported on your statements?
Yes, sir.
It has been noted that several measured finance committees have been supporting your campaign, including the ABQ Fire PAC and ABQ United for District 2. Have you had any coordinated expenditures with either of these MFCs in the use of funds to support your campaign?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. Councilor Benton?
Mr. Chair, board members, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying those reports with the city clerk's office?
I have.
As a participating candidate, in-kind contributions to your campaign are limited to 10% of the applicable spending limit for the runoff election. Have all in-kind contributions been reported on your statements?
They have.
It has been noted that several major finance committees have been supporting your campaign, including Albuquerque Future, ABQ Working Families Party, and Sierra Club 2019. Have you had any coordinated expenditures with any of these MFCs during the runoff period?
I have not.
Thank you very much. Brooke Bassan?
Mr. Chair, board members, I'm Brooke Bassan, City Council candidate for District 4.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry for being a little bit delayed getting in.
Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes, I have.
It was noted in your runoff for Statement 3 that Highway Supply LLC contributed to your campaign. They have a contract with the city according to the city's website. Have these funds been returned to the contributor?
Yes, sir, they have, and we did notify the clerk's office, and it will show up on the next statement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ann Romero?
Board members, Mr. Chair, my name is Ryan Force. I'm the treasurer for Ane Romero.
Thank you. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed the affidavits accompanying the reports for the runoff election with the city clerk's office?
Yes, sir.
As a participating candidate, in-kind contributions to your campaign are limited to 10% of the applicable spending limit for the runoff election. Have all in-kind contributions been reported on your statements?
We actually met with the clerk this morning and actually plan to amend any missing in-kind that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the MFCs. A Better ABQ.
Mr. Chair, board members,
Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
yes, sir.
Which candidate are you supporting in the runoff election?
I'm not supporting any candidate. Ooh. Ane Romero. Sorry.
No problem. Have you had any coordinated expenditures with the candidate for the use of your funds?
No.
Thank you very much. ABQ Fire PAC.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Justin Cheney with the ABQ Fire PAC.
Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying those reports for the runoff election with the city clerk's office?
We have.
Which candidates is the MFC supporting for the runoff election?
ABQ Fire PAC supporting Ane Romero and Zach Quintero.
Have you had any coordinated expenditures with any of the candidates in the use of your funds?
We have not.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
ABQ United for District 2.
Mr. Chairman, I'm John Strong. I'm the chairman of the ABQ United for District 2.
Good afternoon. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes.
Which candidate in the runoff election is your MFC supporting?
Zachary Quintero.
Have you had any coordinated expenditures with Mr. Quintero in the use of your funds?
No.
Thank you very much. ABQ Working Families Party?
Good afternoon, J.D. Matthews, Chair.
Good afternoon. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes.
During the runoff election, which candidates is your MFC supporting?
Working Families endorsed Ike Benton and Ane Romero.
Have you had any coordination with either of the candidates in the use of your funds?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Albuquerque Future?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, board members. Santos Griego, Chair, Albuquerque Future.
Good afternoon. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes, I have.
Which candidate or candidates are you supporting as an MFC during the runoff election?
Isaac Benton.
Have you had any coordinated expenditures with the candidate in the use of your funds?
No, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Albuquerque Rising?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, John Lipchius with Albuquerque Rising.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes, we have.
Which candidate for the runoff election is your MFC supporting?
Ane Romero.
Have you had any coordinated expenditures with the candidate during the runoff period?
We have not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Democratic Party of New Mexico?
Hey there, Mr. Chairman, and I knew I was going to mess this up, and board members.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
We have.
Which candidate or candidates are you supporting during the runoff period?
Ane Romero.
Have you had any coordinated expenditures with the candidate during the runoff period?
We have not.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Progressive ABQ?
Mr. Chair and board members, again, I'm Paula Montoya. I'm the treasurer.
Good afternoon. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes, sir.
Which candidate is your MFC supporting during the runoff period?
Ike Benton.
Have you had any coordinated expenditures with Councilor Benton in the use of your funds during the runoff period?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. Public Safety First?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Paul Broom, treasurer.
Good afternoon. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes, sir, we have.
Have you had any expenditures during the runoff period?
No, sir, we have not.
Are you supporting any candidates during the runoff period?
There, with Zach Quintero.
Okay, thank you very much. Sierra Club 2019 Albuquerque MFC.
Good afternoon. I'm the treasurer, Ray Shortridge.
Good afternoon. Have you filed all necessary campaign finance reports and filed affidavits accompanying the reports with the city clerk's office?
Yes, sir.
Which candidate or candidates are you supporting as an MFC during the runoff period?
Mr. Benton, Ms. Romero?
Have you had any coordinated expenditures with either of the candidates during this period?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, that's it for that part.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Grisham. Moving on the agenda, I want to raise with the board an issue that also will segue into another item on our agenda. We need to return to Board of Ethics Complaint 02-19, Shimamoto versus Rio Grande Foundation, Inc. Let me just remind the board members, this was a complaint that was filed with the city clerk on November 1st, 2019. At the meeting earlier this week, it was accepted by the board for an evidentiary hearing. And the respondent is now required to file a response to the complaint no later than December 18th, 2019. This case, however, highlights a problem that the board is going to face under its present rules and the recently amended city charter. Let me just lay out the issue for all the board members. Under our rules, under Section 6, subparagraph G, the respondent is required to file a response within 15 days after receiving notice from the city clerk that the board has accepted the complaint at the preliminary hearing. Under subsection H2A, the board has to give at least 14 days written notice before we hold an evidentiary hearing. And under subsection H2C, the parties are required to submit any pre-hearing briefs, witness exhibit lists, or documentary evidence to the board at least 10 days before the hearing. That's our rules. The City Council recently amended the charter in a way that conflicts directly with this timetable. And let me lay this out for you. Under Article 12, Section 12(3)(1)(4), all complaints referred to the board during the 60-day period preceding Election Day must be resolved by the board within 30 days from the date of the referral. If not, then the complaint must be dismissed unless delayed by an order of the board upon a showing of good cause. Article 12, Section 12(3)(1)(5) also imposes a blackout period on when the board can consider complaints. Specifically, the board cannot adjudicate any complaint filed against a candidate less than 7 days before Election Day, meaning the week before Election Day, we can't hold a hearing on any complaint. So, with regard to Board of Ethics Complaint 0219, this complaint was referred to us on November 8th, which was within 60 days before Election Day, meaning that it must be resolved by December 8th, unless delayed for good cause. But there's a blackout period that started on December 3rd, which is 7 days before the next election, on December 10th. So that blackout period will end on the 10th, meaning the first possible day this board can consider this matter at a hearing is December 10th, which of course is after the 30-day period mandated by the city charter. So there is no way for this board to resolve this complaint by December 8th, as required by our rules, without running afoul of the city charter. So I will submit to the board that this conflict, the conflict between the amount of time required by our rules and the deadline set forth in the newly amended city charter, constitutes good cause to delay. And I'm going to recommend a motion that the board vote to extend the 30-day period for resolving this complaint. complaint 0219. I also, though, want to raise an issue that this same issue, this same question of a conflict between the amount of time required by our rules and the amount of time set forth in the newly amended city charter is pendant in several of the other complaints that have been filed before the board. All of these cases were filed within 60 days of the city election, and thus they all must be resolved within 30 days. But by the time the board will meet to determine whether to set them for an evidentiary hearing, and then the time runs to allow a response, and then the time runs for the parties to get adequate notice, and the time for submitting witness lists, exhibit lists, and other materials for the board to consider before the hearing, all of that will run past the 30-day window set forth in the city charter. So clearly, we need to do something. And that one thing, that one safety valve that is provided for us under the city charter is for us to delay consideration, meaning consideration beyond the 30-day window based on a showing of good cause. And again, my suggestion to the board is that because of this conflict between our rules and the recently amended charter, that would constitute a showing of good cause. So now that I've laid out that issue, and again, all of this came up specifically within the context of Board of Ethics complaint 0219, which is on our properly noticed agenda for today. But I did want to highlight that that same issue is lurking out there with regard to other matters, but those matters are not on the board's agenda for today. So now that I've laid that out, let me open it up for comment and consideration by the board.
I have a question. Can we have an open extension of the time period, or do we need to specify a date by which the hearing will be held? I think the revised ordinance doesn't address that, does it?
I don't believe it does, and I'll ask the city clerk to address the question.
No, Mr. Chair, member, I don't think it does address that. I think that would be left to the board's discretion.
Okay. Well, obviously, we need to extend the time periods, and also one of the items on our agenda is to revise the rules and regulations of the board, and we will deal with this problem when we revise the rules. But in the meantime, and with specific reference to BOE 2-19, I would move that we extend the deadline for hearing that case based on good cause prompted by the conflict between our rules and regulations and the revised city ordinance.
And I'll second the motion.
Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion to delay consideration of Board of Ethics complaint 0219 beyond the 30-day period based upon a showing of good cause, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion is passed unanimously. We will need to address this issue with some of these other pending complaints, but it would not be proper for us to do so at this time because this was not on our agenda for today. So the public has not had notice. But as Member Throckmorton indicated, this does segue into another item on our agenda. I'm going to leapfrog here a little out of order. Item 10. The city clerk has been working incredibly hard on some updates for our Board of Ethics rules and regulations. What I would like to suggest, rather than have the city clerk make an introduction to this, because all of us have received copies, they're very extensive, and in addition to that, my understanding is the city clerk has worked on some further proposed revisions. It does not seem to me to be the best use of our time in this setting to try and discuss these in an open meeting on the record, particularly in this physical setting. So my suggestion to the board will be that I would like to constitute a subcommittee. And I want to be very clear because I am very conscious of our obligations under the Open Meetings Act. This subcommittee will be comprised of 3 members, which is less than a quorum, so they cannot conduct any official business of this board. And this subcommittee will be charged solely with coming back to the full board with a recommendation, not to take formal action, but with a recommendation for the board to consider revised rules and regulations for the Board of Ethics. And in particular, I would like to suggest a 3-member subcommittee, and that subcommittee would consist of Member Throckmorton, Member Cadigan, and myself. So that is my proposal to the board. I'm not sure we need a formal motion, but if the board would feel more comfortable, I'm happy to entertain one.
Doesn't hurt. I would move that we appoint a subcommittee of the board to consider revisions to the rules and regulations of the board and make a recommendation back to the full board on those revisions. And that the subcommittee consist of Chairman Schultz, Member Cadigan, and Member Throckmorton.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Before we move into any other discussion, I should have also specified we clearly want to take advantage of all of the hard work that has been performed by the city clerk's office, and so the subcommittee will be working closely with the city clerk or her designee on that subcommittee. Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Are you putting a timeline when it will be done, and what meeting we take up the formal adoption?
That's an excellent question. So this is just a musing out loud. So it's now December 6th. By my calendar, we also have some holidays coming up, which is also a impingement on people's time besides all of their volunteer service here. I would like to suggest a time period of that the subcommittee report back to the full board within 45 days.
I think that's reasonable.
Are you comfortable with that?
And then I guess one by one, if we have any other scheduled meetings or any other further complaints, we could still use the same motion we did today to extend them.
Absolutely. And in fact, we would only have to do it that way because we'd have to give proper notice that that issue was on the agenda for our committee. So yes, John, that'd be exactly right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to recommend that any member of the board, upon reviewing the revised rules and regulations, be able to submit it to one of the 3 participating subcommittee members to address that with, between themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion to form the subcommittee indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is unanimous. We have one last item on our formal agenda. Apparently, my term is up, and it was up, quite frankly, this last summer. we're in a little bit of an awkward position because the board does not yet have a full complement. We do not have 6 members. And under the city charter, it takes 6 members to propose the person to serve as chair. But in order to get the ball moving, my suggestion is going to be as follows. My suggestion is that we will hold a period of 1 week open for all current members of the board to submit a nomination for board chair to the city clerk's office. So I'd rather not do it today while we're here, but I'll hold this open for 1 week. At that time, I would like the city clerk to report back to the board which nominations have been considered. Under the city charter, all nominations are then to be placed out for public comment. I am hopeful that during this intervening time, the city council will take up its duty and appoint the 6th and final member of the board. So by that time, the board will be able to consider the nominees and vote on a new chair. So that is my proposal for how we move forward with my lapsed term. Does anyone have any objection to that suggestion on how we proceed?
No objection from me.
All right. Hearing no objection, then, Madam Clerk, please report back to the board by the close of business next Friday as to who or which nominations you have received. Before we adjourn, I do want to raise one last issue, speaking of our city clerk. It seems like we just got to know you, and unfortunately, our current city clerk will be leaving office very, very soon. She is leaving in order to run for a state office.
Yes, Mr. Chair, right now my focus is on finishing out the runoff and
Absolutely. But this may be I'm raising this only because this may be our last meeting in which you serve as city clerk. And on behalf of the entire board, Katie, I want to tell you how much we appreciate all of your efforts and how great it has been to work with you, even if only for this short period of time. So on behalf of all of the board, thank you very, very much. It has been a true pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of the members. Your dedication to this board is really inspiring and very much appreciated.
All right.
Before we adjourn, I have a question to ask. It looks like BOE 6-19 was filed on November 22nd, which means the 30-day period would expire December 22nd. Are we going to have any scheduled hearings between now and then?
Mr. Chair, Member Throckmorton, I believe that BOE 6 has not, so being referred to the board is what starts the clock on those 30 days, as opposed to the filing of the complaint. And I believe that one has not yet been referred to the board. I think is that Rio Grande Foundation versus Keller?
Yes.
Number 6?
Yeah.
My understanding is that it will probably be referred on Monday, just because under the complaint diversion process, it says that if we haven't had successful voluntary compliance in 15 days, it gets referred. That said, my understanding is that there might be some settlement negotiations happening in that case, which might have the possibility of resolving it.
Okay.
And is the same true for some of the other pending complaints that have been filed but not yet referred to the board?
Yes, there's one that I know will need to be referred to the board that has not. That's Shimamoto versus Basan. But there are two others, Breen versus Romero and, now I can't remember. Right, Shimoda versus Republican Party. Both of those, I met with the parties this morning. I think those are going to be resolved with voluntary compliance.
Okay. Well, then what I would ask, though, Mr. Throckmorton's question remains an excellent one. For those matters that do not settle, I would ask the city clerk's office to contact the board members so that we can set a timely meeting so that whatever action needs to be taken, either with regard to a preliminary hearing or with regard to the similar motion that we did today to extend the 30-day period, can be timely done.
Of course.
Great. We have no other items on our agenda for today. Is there any other business? In that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. I'm assuming there is no objection. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
So Andy, are you termed out?
No, I finished one term.
Okay.